Before I start the story, I want to get to know you too. Write the flag colors of the country you're watching from, and I'll try to guess. Who knows? Maybe we're neighbors. At Christmas dinner, my daughter-in-law raised her glass and announced loudly, "Starting today, I'm going to manage everything in this family. Mother-in-law, your card has been canceled. My husband decided it was best." Everyone applauded. I just smiled and said, "Son, you really don't know, do you?" He froze like his heart had stopped beating. My daughter-in-law screamed, "No what?" Let me tell you how I got to that moment. How a night that should have been filled with joy became the instant my own son stuck a knife in my chest without even realizing what he was doing. He tried to embarrass me in front of everyone he thought. Canceling my card would ruin me. But after years of staying silent, I finally spoke up and reminded him who raised this man. My name is Evelyn Brooks. I'm 67 years old, and that Christmas night, dressed in my burgundy, African-inspired heritage shawl that I had hand-woven myself, I was sitting at the head of the table in my own house, watching my family celebrate my humiliation. The table was set with the embroidered tablecloth I had sewn 30 years ago. The scented candles gave off the aroma of cinnamon. The golden honey-baked ham rested in the center, surrounded by gumbo, cornbread dressing, and collard greens. Everything looked perfect. Everything except what was about to happen. Ariana, my daughter-in-law, stood up. She wore a fitted peach-colored dress that showed her 5-month pregnant belly. Her chestnut hair fell in perfect waves over her shoulders. She smiled with that confidence only people who think they've already won possess. She raised her glass of sparkling apple cider and gently tapped the crystal with a small spoon. The tinkling called everyone's attention. My son, Marcus, sitting beside her, looked at her with adoration. My sisters-in-law, wives of my nephews, stopped talking. The children running around the living room stopped. Even the Christmas jazz seemed to lower in volume. "Family," Ariana began with a firm, clear voice. "Today is a special day, not just because of Christmas, but because I have an important announcement to make." I felt a knot in my stomach. Something in her tone warned me this wouldn't be about the baby. As you know, Marcus and I are expecting our first child. This makes us think about the future, about responsibilities. She made a dramatic pause, letting her words float in the air. "That's why we've made a very important family decision." Marcus nodded beside her, serious, with that expression he wore when he thought he was doing the right thing. Ariana continued, "Starting today, I'm going to manage all the finances of this family. It's time for someone young, with modern financial education, to take control of things." The silence was so dense you could hear the crackling of the candles. "Mother-in-law," she said, turning toward me with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Your credit card was canceled this morning. Marcus and I decided it's better this way. At your age, you don't need to worry about expenses or responsibilities. We'll take care of everything. If you need something, just ask in advance, of course." The words fell like stones into a calm lake. But the lake wasn't me. The lake was my family. My sisters-in-law exchanged approving glances. One of them, Shanice, even clapped softly. "What a good idea, Ariana. My mother-in-law should do the same thing. These older ladies are a disaster with money." The nephews laughed. Someone clinked their glass with Ariana's. Marcus smiled proudly as if he had solved a problem no one else had seen. And I just watched them. I watched as my 31-year-old son, the boy I raised alone after being widowed, the man I formed with tears and sacrifice, looked at me as if I were a burden he had finally learned to manage. I felt something break inside me. It wasn't anger, not yet. It was something deeper. It was confirmation of a suspicion I'd had for 3 years, since the day Ariana entered our lives. I took a sip of my sweet tea punch. The bittersweet taste reminded me of all the previous Christmases when Marcus and I were just the two of us, sharing sweet potato pie at our small table, laughing because I had burned the ham. Now we were here, in this house that he thought was mine, surrounded by people celebrating my defeat. I set the glass on the table. The sound resonated louder than I expected. All eyes turned to me. Ariana remained standing, expectant, waiting for my reaction. She wanted to see me cry, wanted me to beg, wanted me to break. But instead of that, I smiled. It was a calm, almost sweet smile, the smile of someone who knows something others ignore. I stood up slowly, feeling the weight of my 67 years in my knees. I looked at my son directly in his honey-colored eyes that he inherited from his father, eyes that once looked at me with pure love before the poison of ambition clouded them. "Son," I said softly, with a calm voice, "you really don't know, do you?" Marcus blinked. His smile froze. Something in my tone made him doubt. "Know what, Mama?" he asked with an uncertain voice. Ariana stepped forward nervously. "Know what?" she repeated, but now her voice had an edge of panic. I didn't answer immediately. I just looked at both of them. And in that silence, in that pause, loaded with meaning, I saw how doubt began to slide across their faces like cold water. Because they knew nothing. They didn't know who I really was. They didn't know what I had built in 40 years of silence. They didn't know that the woman they had just publicly humiliated was the only one who held the keys to the kingdom they thought they were conquering. The table fell into complete silence. Only the tick-tock of the wall clock and the crackling of the wood in the fireplace could be heard. And there I was, Evelyn, the widow, the seamstress, the devoted mother, the woman they had just underestimated for the last time. But to understand why that question left them frozen, I need to take you back in time. I need to tell you who I am, where I come from, and how I built an empire in the shadows while everyone thought I was just a harmless old lady, because the worst hadn't happened yet. 40 years ago, I wasn't Evelyn, the mother-in-law humiliated at a Christmas dinner. I was Evelyn, the 27-year-old widow who had just buried her husband with 7 months of pregnancy and a mountain of debts that threatened to bury her alive. I remember the day of the funeral as if it were yesterday. The sky was gray, loaded with clouds that never finished releasing the rain. The casket rested underground in St. Louis Cemetery. I was there with my black dress, borrowed from a neighbor, feeling how my son kicked inside my belly as if protesting the absence of his father. I didn't cry that day, not because I didn't want to, but because my tears had already run out 3 days before, when the doctor told me, "I'm sorry, ma'am, we did everything possible." James had died in a car accident, a truck that ran a red light in an instant, and everything we had built together vanished. What didn't vanish were the debts. 2 weeks after the burial, they knocked on my door. It was Mr. Raymond, the owner of the hardware store where James had asked for credit to repair our roof. He handed me a crumpled paper with handwritten numbers. "Mrs. Evelyn, I hate to bother you in your morning, but it's $35,000. Your husband signed the house deed as collateral." I felt the ground open beneath my feet. $35,000? In 1985, that was a fortune, and I was a seamstress who earned $120 a week hemming and mending pants. I closed the door, sat on the living room floor. My hand caressed my swollen belly, and for the first time since James died, I spoke aloud. "Forgive me, my baby. Your mama doesn't know how we're going to get out of this, but I swear to you, I swear by all that's holy, that we're going to make it." I had no plan, no money, barely had strength, but I had a Singer's sewing machine that my grandmother had left me, and I had hands that knew how to turn fabric into dreams. The next day, I walked 6 blocks to Miss Loretta Gaines' house, an upper-class lady from the Garden District who had once asked me to alter an imported dress. I knocked on her wrought iron door with my heart in my throat. When she opened, she saw me there, pregnant, with dark circles under my eyes, holding a worn portfolio full of my designs drawn by hand. "Miss Loretta," I said with a trembling but firm voice, "I need work. Anything. But I promise you that if you give me a chance, you'll never find anyone who sews better than me." She looked me up and down. Then, to my surprise, she smiled. "Come in, child. Let's have some coffee." That afternoon changed my life. Miss Loretta didn't just give me work, she gave me an education. She taught me that sewing wasn't just a trade, it was a business. She explained about profit margins, about how to charge for design, and not just by the hour. About the importance of having clients who paid well, instead of many who paid little. "Evelyn," she told me one day, while we drank tea in her garden full of magnolias, "you have a gift. But a gift without strategy is like having gold without knowing you have it. I'm going to invest in you. I'm going to lend you money so you can buy better fabrics, so you can rent a little workshop, and you're going to pay me back when you start earning. There's no rush, but there is a condition. Never settle for being just a seamstress. Become a businesswoman." 2 months later, Marcus was born. A beautiful 7-pound baby with his father's eyes and my upturned nose. I held him in my arms in that little room at Charity Hospital and whispered to him, "You're going to have everything I didn't have. I promise you." And I kept my word. I worked like never before, from 5 in the morning to 11 at night. Marcus slept in a little crib next to my sewing machine. The sound of the mechanical pedal became his lullaby. And I never told Marcus anything. I wanted my son to grow up hungry, eager to work hard, to value money because he had seen it scarce, so he wouldn't become one of those spoiled rich kids who waste fortunes because they never had to earn them. So I maintained the facade, the widow seamstress, the struggling mother, the simple woman who was barely getting by. When Marcus turned 18 and entered to study industrial engineering at the University of New Orleans, I told him he had gotten a full scholarship. In reality, I paid every dollar of his tuition, $9,200 per semester. When he graduated and got his first job as a junior engineer, earning $7,200 a month, he was so proud. He hugged me and said, "Mama, now I'm going to take care of you. You don't have to work so hard anymore." I laughed. I caressed his face. "Oh, my boy, if you only knew." But I didn't tell him anything. By then, I already had 8 commercial properties, all rented, generating $72,000 monthly in passive income. I had 3 luxury apartments in the French Quarter that I had bought at bargain prices during the economic crisis, and I had $1,700,000 in bank investments. My total wealth exceeded $2.8 million, and Marcus thought his mother was barely surviving sewing dresses. I did it out of love, for protection, because I wanted him to become a man through his own merit. But I never imagined that silence, that white lie would become the weapon they would one day use to destroy me. Because 3 years later, Marcus met Ariana at a corporate party, and everything started to change. She came into my life like fog arrives, slowly, almost imperceptibly, but covering everything until you can no longer see the road. And I, who had survived widowhood, debts, and 40 years of struggle, didn't see what was coming until it was too late. Marcus was 30 years old when he met Ariana. I was 64. And at that time, my son still didn't know the truth about me. To him, I was the sacrificing mother who lived in a modest house in New Orleans East, who continued sewing dresses to stay active, who rejected his offers of financial help with stubborn pride. No, my love, I'm fine. You save your money for your future. What Marcus didn't know was that modest house was just one of my 9 properties. While I sewed wedding dresses, quinceañera gowns, and evening wear, he grew up surrounded by colorful threads and silk scraps. With the money Miss Loretta lent me, I opened my first workshop, Evelyn's Fine Tailoring, in a 200-square-foot space in the Medigny. I hired 2 girls from the neighborhood who knew how to sew. I taught them everything Miss Loretta had taught me. The first months were hard. There were nights I ate only red beans and rice so I could buy more fabric. But little by little, the business grew. The society ladies started recommending me. You have to go to Evelyn. That woman sews like an angel. And with each dress I delivered, my reputation grew. 3 years after James's death, I had paid all his debts, every dollar, down to the last cent. Miss Loretta came to visit me at the workshop the day I made my final payment. She hugged me tight and said, "I'm proud of you, child. Now comes the hard part, growing." And I grew. I opened a second workshop, then a third. I started selling not only to private clients, but to elegant boutiques. I registered my trademark. Miss Loretta introduced me to an accountant, to a lawyer. She taught me to invest. The money you earn isn't for spending, Evelyn. It's for making it grow. Buy properties, rent them out, create passive income. I didn't fully understand what passive income meant, but I learned. Oh, how I learned. I bought my first commercial property when Marcus was 8 years old, a small corner store in a well-located spot. I rented it to a lady who sold groceries. Every month, she paid me $300, money that came in without me having to sew a single button. Marcus studied at public school. He wore mended uniforms. We ate simply. We lived in the same humble house that James had left us. But secretly, I was building an empire. After 10 years of widowhood, I had 3 commercial properties renting out. After 15, there were 5. I bought properties in neighborhoods that were growing before their prices went up. I invested in bank certificates. I saved every dollar as if it were the last. I had bought it 20 years ago for $80,000. Now it was worth more than $340,000. But I kept it simple on purpose. Cream-colored walls, old but comfortable furniture, a living room with that floral couch he remembered from his childhood. Everything was theater, a stage carefully designed so my son would believe his mother was barely surviving with dignity. Meanwhile, I kept building. At 64 years old, I had expanded my small empire. I had 8 commercial properties rented in prime areas, 2 pharmacies, 3 medical offices, a cafe, a stationery store, and a beauty salon. Every month, without lifting a finger, $72,000 came into my bank accounts clean. I also owned 3 luxury apartments in the French Quarter that Miss Loretta and I had bought as partners when the market collapsed in 2008. We rented them to foreign executives for $1,600 each per month. My accountant, Mr. Charles Whitaker, a serious 59-year-old man with thick glasses, visited me every 3 months to review finances. He always knocked on my door at 9 in the morning, when he knew Marcus was already at work. "Mrs. Evelyn," he would tell me while we reviewed account statements in my dining room, "your investments keep growing. You're at $1,700,000 in CDs and investment funds. Do you want to diversify more?" I would nod, taking notes in my hardcover notebook. The seamstress who never finished high school now understood annual returns, compound interest rates, and long-term investment strategies. Miss Loretta had taught me well before she died 5 years ago. Her last will was to leave me her share of the properties we had bought together. You paid back every dollar I lent you, Evelyn, and you gave me something more valuable. You showed me that betting on women is never a bad investment. But none of this existed for Marcus. To him, I was still the widow who sometimes asked him to help change a light bulb or fix the dripping faucet. I lied to him, yes, but I did it out of love. I wanted my son to learn the value of effort, to know how to earn things, to not become one of those men who squander inherited fortunes because they never sweated to get them. And it worked. Marcus became a responsible, hardworking, honest engineer. He rented a small apartment, drove a used car, saved every month. I was proud of him. Until Ariana arrived. He met her at an industrial engineering conference. She worked as a marketing manager at a consulting firm. 31 years old, college degree, designer clothes, French perfume. She spoke with that confidence of someone born with open doors. Marcus came to visit me one Saturday, radiant with that smile I hadn't seen since he was a child. "Mama, I met someone special." My heart filled with joy. My son, always so shy, had finally found someone. "What's her name, my love?" "Ariana. She's incredible, Mama. Intelligent, successful, beautiful. I want you to meet her." 2 weeks later, she knocked on my door. She arrived in a white BMW. She wore large sunglasses, a leather purse I recognized as designer. I had sewn enough imitations to know the difference, and heels that sounded authoritative against the floor. I opened the door, still wearing my apron, my hands stained with flour because I was making biscuits. "Ma'am, nice to meet you. I'm Ariana." She extended her hand. Her grip was brief, almost disdainful. Her eyes scanned my house in 2 seconds. The old couch, the ancient television, the faded curtains. I saw how her expression changed, a microsecond of disappointment, immediately covered with a professional smile. That day, we ate gumbo I had prepared. Marcus talked excitedly about their plans together. Ariana nodded, but her eyes kept wandering around my house, evaluating, cataloging, judging. When they left, I sat in my floral couch. Something in my stomach didn't feel right. But I told myself, give it time, Evelyn. You barely know her. The next 6 months were a whirlwind. Marcus and Ariana became officially boyfriend and girlfriend. He started changing small things at first. He stopped visiting me on Sundays, our sacred tradition since he was a child, because Ariana organized brunches with her friends. He started wearing more expensive clothes, things I knew he couldn't afford with his salary. When I asked him about it, he told me, "Ariana says I should invest in my professional image, Mama." One day, he came to see me with a serious face. "Mama, Ariana and I are thinking about getting married." My heart jumped so fast. "My love, you've only been together 8 months. It's just that she's the one, Mama. I know it. And well," he scratched his neck nervously, "there's something I want to ask you." I felt a chill. "Tell me." "Ariana thinks that, well, that when we get married, it would be good if you sold this house and came to live with us. She says it's too big for you alone, that you're getting older, that you need someone to take care of you." There it was, the first move on the board. I smiled calmly. "Oh, my boy, I'm perfectly fine here. This house has my memories, my sewing workshop. I can't imagine myself anywhere else." Marcus frowned. "But Mama, Ariana is right. What if you fall and there's no one there? If you get sick, we could take better care of you." Take care of me. That word. As if I were an invalid old woman who needed supervision. "Son, I'm 64 years old, not 90. I'm still working, walking, living my life. When the time comes that I need help, I'll let you know, but that time is not today." I saw frustration in his eyes, but he nodded. "Okay, Mama, I just want you to be well." They left, but that conversation planted a seed of worry in my chest. 3 months later, they got married. A discreet wedding in an elegant garden. 150 guests, an imported wedding dress that cost $3,200. Marcus confessed it to me shamefully when I asked. I attended in my best dress, one I had sewn especially for the occasion. Champagne-colored silk fabric, discreet embroidery. Several guests asked me who had made it. I felt proud, but during the reception, I heard Ariana talking with her friends near the bar. They didn't see me. "That's your mother-in-law, the one in the golden dress?" "Yes," Ariana responded with a sigh. Poor Marcus, raised alone with her. The woman could never give him anything. She lives alone, yes, in an old little house in New Orleans East. Marcus wants her to come live with us when we buy a house, but I don't know. Imagine having her there all the time. Her friends laughed. One said, "Well, at least you don't have to worry about complicated inheritances." "No, there's nothing to fight over." Ariana smiled. "That's the advantage. No money dramas." I walked away before they could see me. My hands trembled as I held my champagne glass. I breathed deeply. "Calm down, Evelyn," I told myself. "Let them think what they want." But something inside me changed that night. I realized that Ariana had not only misjudged my economic situation, she had built her entire plan based on a lie I myself had created. And now my silence was becoming my worst enemy. The following 2 years were a slow but steady escalation. Ariana convinced Marcus to buy a house in an exclusive gated community. They asked for an enormous mortgage loan. Marcus worked 12 hours daily to pay the monthly payments of $1,280. I saw him exhausted every time he came to visit me, now only once a month. "Are you okay, son?" "Yes, Mama. Just tired, but it's worth it. Ariana is happy in the new house." Ariana got pregnant. Marcus was over the moon. I knitted blankets for my grandson. I embroidered sheets, prepared homemade preserves. But every time I visited their house, I felt the change. Ariana treated me with cold courtesy. She offered me tea in chipped cups while she drank coffee in fine porcelain. She made me wait in the living room when I arrived because she was busy. And Marcus, my son, didn't see anything. He was so submerged in work, in pleasing his wife, and preparing for fatherhood that he didn't notice how they were displacing me from his life. Until that Christmas arrived. The dinner, the toast, the announcement, and my question that froze everything. "Son, you really don't know, do you?" Because the moment had come. I could no longer stay silent. Not when my own son was burying me alive.
Let me go back a little more. I need you to understand exactly who Ariana Collins really was, because what my son saw in her and what she actually was were two completely different things. He met her at an innovation industry conference at the Roosevelt Hotel in the French Quarter. Marcus had gone reluctantly, sent by his boss without much enthusiasm. She was there representing her consulting company with a badge that said Strategic Marketing Manager. Ariana was 5'6", straight chestnut hair, always perfectly straightened, flawless makeup that gave her that magazine appearance, gel nails in nude color, clothes that screamed money, tailored blazers, silk blouses, heels that she deliberately clicked against the marble to draw attention. She spoke with that neutral accent of someone who studied at private bilingual schools. She used English words in the middle of her sentences.
It's a very corporate issue, you know? You have to think about personal branding. Marcus was dazzled. My son, so simple, so noble, had never met anyone like that. To him, Ariana represented that sophisticated world he had never had access to. What he didn't know was that everything was a facade, smoke and mirrors. Ariana grew up in the 7th Ward, in a family that once had money. Her father, Gerald Collins, had been the owner of an auto parts distribution ship. They lived well for years. 3-story house, 2 cars, vacations in Gulf Shores. But when Ariana was 23, the business went bankrupt. Bad investments, fraudulent partners, debts that accumulated like an avalanche. They lost the house, the cars, everything. Her father fell into depression. Her mother, Denise, had to start selling costume jewelry at flea markets to survive. But Ariana decided that she would never, ever be poor again. She got a job at the consulting company by lying on her resume. She added certifications she didn't have. She exaggerated her experience. She was good at talking, at selling smoke, at making mediocre projects sound revolutionary in PowerPoint. She earned $10,000 a month, but spent $16,000. How? Credit cards. 5 in total. She rotated them like a desperate juggler. She paid the minimum on one with cash from another. She bought brand-name clothes on clearance. She carried knockoff purses so good that no one noticed the difference. She rented, didn't buy. The white BMW she drove was leased. The jewelry she wore was borrowed from her cousin who worked at a jewelry store. Everything was a lie. But it was a lie so well constructed that no one questioned it until she met Marcus. That day at the conference, she evaluated him in 30 seconds. Industrial engineer, 30 years old, modest car, but clean. Not expensive suit, but well pressed. Simple watch, no ring. She calculated, this man isn't rich, but he has potential. Professional, stable, and, best of all, shy, malleable. She approached with a wine glass in hand. First time at these conferences? You look lost. Marcus blushed. Is it that obvious? Ariana laughed. A studied, musical laugh. Relax, I can't stand these events either. Want me to show you the trick to surviving them? Follow me. And that's how it all began. With a conversation, with that ability Ariana had to make the other person feel special, seen, important. Marcus fell completely. They went out 3 times before she allowed him a kiss. She played her cards well, played hard to get. She told him an edited version of her life, family of lineage that had gone through difficult times but maintained their dignity. My family lost everything, she told him one night with perfectly dosed tears. But they taught me that your surname, education, class, no one can take that away from you. Marcus, noble as always, hugged her. I understand. My mama raised me alone. I know what it's like to struggle. Ariana smiled against his chest. Perfect. A man with a savior complex. When Marcus finally introduced her to me, I already knew something didn't add up. Call it instinct, call it experience. 40 years building businesses had taught me to read people. The way Ariana shook my hand, that quick, disdainful grip. Her eyes evaluating every corner of my house, cataloging the value of things. The way she smiled, but her gaze remained cold. I knew that look. I had seen it in clients who came to my workshop with counterfeit bills, in suppliers who sold me defective fabric, in potential partners who just wanted to steal my designs. It was the look of someone who's always calculating. What can I get from this? How does this benefit me? During that first meal, we talked about trivialities, but I asked soft, casual questions. And your family, Ariana, what do they do? My father was in the automotive sector. He's retired now. Half-truth. Where do you live now? In an apartment in mid-city. It's small but cozy. She omitted that she rented it with 2 roommates to be able to pay for it. And at the consulting company, what type of projects do you handle? There, she hesitated for just a second, but I saw it. Brand strategy, positioning, that type of thing. Rodrigo looked at her enchanted, didn't see the contradictions, didn't notice how she evaded concrete details. When they left, I called my accountant. Mr. Whitaker, I need you to investigate someone discreetly. He looked at me surprised. In all our years working together, I had never asked him for something like this. Mrs. Evelyn, is this about Marcus? I need to know who my son is dating. 3 weeks later, I had a 12-page report about Ariana Collins. Credit card debts, $61,200. Bad credit history, 2 personal loans in collection process. Real salary, $8,000 monthly, not the $18,000 she had told Marcus. Family, unemployed father, informal vendor mother, younger brother with addiction problems. They lived in a subsidized apartment in the lower Ninth Ward. Everything Ariana had told Marcus was a made-up, stretched, retouched version of reality. I sat in my armchair with that report in my hands. My instinct told me, get her away from your son. Show him this. Protect him. But something stopped me. Marcus was genuinely in love. I could see it in his eyes when he talked about her. And if I arrived with evidence, with papers, unmasking her, what would happen? He would hate me. He would see me as the meddling mother-in-law, the controlling mother who doesn't want to let go of her son. Besides, part of me understood Ariana. I had been in her place. Young, scared, trying to survive in a world that judges you by your bank account. I too had lied, had exaggerated, had pretended to be more than I was to get clients. Maybe, I thought, maybe Marcus's love will change her. Maybe she'll find stability with him and stop chasing ghosts of wealth. I put the report in my safe and decided to wait. It was the biggest mistake of my life, because Ariana wasn't looking for love. She was looking for economic salvation, and had decided that Marcus, and eventually I, were her ticket out. The following months were a masterclass in manipulation. Ariana started planting seeds, casual conversations that seemed innocent but had poison in their roots. Love, your mama doesn't have other relatives to help her. It must be difficult for her to be so alone. Have you thought about your mama's future? I mean, when she can no longer take care of herself. How nice that you keep visiting her every Sunday. Although, don't you think we should start building our own traditions as a couple? Little by little, Marcus started seeing me differently. I was no longer his strong, independent mother. I was becoming the little old lady who needed protection, the future burden that had to be managed. When they announced their engagement, Ariana visited me alone. For the first time, she knocked on my door on a Tuesday afternoon. She wore designer jeans and an immaculate white blouse. Perfect smile. Mother-in-law, can we talk? I made her coffee. We sat in my dining room. I want us to be friends, she began. You are very important to Marcus, and therefore you're important to me. I nodded, waiting. I know you've struggled a lot, that you raised Marcus alone. That speaks of an incredible woman. Dramatic pause. That's why I want you to know that when we get married, you'll never be alone. We're going to take care of you like family. Her words sounded sweet, but her eyes studied me, looking for cracks, weaknesses. I thank you, Ariana, but I'm fine. I don't need anyone to take care of me. Something crossed her face, annoyance quickly covered with another smile. Of course, of course. I just want you to know you can count on us for whatever. She left half an hour later, but she left something in the air. A silent warning. You're in my way, her eyes said, and I'm going to move you. That night, I took the report out of my safe, read it again, and made a decision. I wasn't going to interfere yet, but I wasn't going to lower my guard either. Ariana wanted to play well, but she didn't know who she was messing with, because I had built an empire from scratch. I had survived widowhood, debts, discrimination. I had learned to fight in a world that doesn't give you anything. And if Ariana thought that a little old seamstress was easy prey, she was about to discover her mistake, the most expensive mistake of her life. The wedding was just the beginning. What came after was a systematic, calculated, almost surgical campaign to erase me from my son's life. Ariana didn't attack head-on. She was too intelligent for that. Instead, she worked like humidity, slow, invisible, but destroying the foundations from within. The first months of marriage were relatively calm. Marcus visited me every 2 weeks. Ariana always had an excuse not to accompany him. I have a meeting, I have a headache, I'm tired from work. I prepared his favorite food, red beans and rice with cornbread, like when he was a child. We sat in my dining room and he told me about his life, but I noticed small changes. At first, Marcus started arriving with new clothes I knew he couldn't afford. Brand-name shirts, Italian shoes. Ariana says I should look more professional to grow in the company, he explained to me. He changed his phone to the latest model. Ariana bought it as a wedding gift. They bought expensive furniture for the house. Ariana found an incredible deal. Every sentence started with, Ariana says, Ariana thinks, Ariana wants. My son was becoming an echo of his wife. One Sunday, 8 months after the wedding, Marcus arrived with a strange, worried expression. He sat on the couch and looked at me with those eyes that always melted my heart. Mama, I need to talk to you about something important. My stomach tightened. Tell me, my love. Ariana and I have been talking about your situation, and we're worried. My situation? I raised an eyebrow. Yes. Living alone at your age, Mama? You're already 65 years old. What if you fall? If you get sick? If someone tries to rob you? This house is old. The neighborhood isn't as safe anymore. Every word was a repetition of something I was sure Ariana had planted in his head. Marcus, I'm perfectly fine. I know all my neighbors. Mrs. Lupita next door brings me sweetbread every morning. Mr. Arthur helps me with repairs. I'm not alone. I know, Mama, but it's not enough. He breathed deeply. Ariana and I want you to come live with us. There was the first real move. My love, I appreciate the offer, truly, but this is my home. Here are my memories of your father, of when you were a child, my sewing workshop, my life. Marcus rubbed his face, frustrated. Mama, I know it's difficult, but think about the future. When you really can't take care of yourself, wouldn't it be better to make the change now while you can still adapt? The logic of his words was poisoned with good intentions. Ariana had trained him well. Son, when that day comes, if it comes, we'll consider it. But today is not that day. Is that clear? I saw disappointment in his face. He left half an hour later with the container of gumbo I had prepared for him, but with the weight of something unresolved between us. That night, I received a call. Ariana. First time she had called me directly. Mother-in-law, I'm so sorry if today's conversation made you uncomfortable. Marcus is just worried about you. Her voice was poisoned honey. I understand, Ariana, but there's nothing to worry about. Of course, of course. It's just that, well, Marcus told me that you sometimes forget things. Names, dates, and at our age, that can be a sign of, excuse me, I interrupted, feeling rage rise up my spine. What exactly did Marcus tell you? Oh, I don't want to worry you. It's probably just nerves. But he mentioned that last week you forgot you had already agreed to meet, and it was a lie, a complete lie. Marcus had canceled our date, not me. But Ariana was rewriting history, planting doubts about my mental health.
Ariana, I said with a firm voice, my mind is perfectly clear. I manage my finances, my house, my sewing business. I haven't forgotten anything. There was silence. Then her voice changed, colder. Well, if you say so. We just wanted to help. But I understand you're proud. Marcus warned me about that. She hung up before I could respond. I sat in the darkness of my living room holding the phone. Now I understood her strategy. She wasn't attacking me directly. She was attacking my credibility with Marcus, painting me as the stubborn, forgetful old woman who doesn't recognize her own limitations. It was brilliant and dangerous. The following months, the campaign intensified. Ariana convinced Marcus that I needed help organizing my important documents. One Saturday, they arrived together. Ariana brought a bright pink plastic folder. Mother-in-law, we brought this for you to keep your important papers. Birth certificates, deeds, medical documents. Where do you keep them? Stored in a safe place. Thank you. But where exactly? It's important that Marcus knows in case of emergency. Marcus nodded, worried. It's true, Mama. If something happens to you, I need to know where your documents are. I refused politely, but firmly. When it's necessary, I'll inform you. For now, everything is under control. I saw frustration in Ariana's eyes. She hadn't gained access to my papers. Then she tried another tactic. She suggested that Marcus help me manage my money. Your mama shouldn't worry about paying bills at her age. You could handle that for her. It would be one less burden. Marcus proposed it to me during a visit. Mama, let me help you. I can pay your utilities, electricity, water, phone from my account. You just tell me how much you spend per month and I'll take care of it. It's not necessary, son. I handle everything perfectly. But Mama! Marcus, my voice was harder than usual. I appreciate your intention, but I don't need you to manage me. Is that clear? He blinked, surprised. I rarely spoke to him like that. But Ariana didn't give up. Every rejected strategy was replaced with a new one. When Ariana got pregnant, everything changed speed. Marcus arrived radiant to give me the news. Mama, I'm going to be a father. You're going to be a grandmother. I hugged him with genuine tears. My grandson. A little piece of James living in this new generation. But Ariana used the pregnancy as a weapon. Mother-in-law, with the baby coming, we're going to need space. And frankly, your house is bigger than our apartment. Have you thought about selling and buying something smaller? We could use that money for the baby's education. She said it casually during a family visit, as if she were suggesting what to have for dinner. This house is not for sale, I responded. Oh, don't be offended. It's just a suggestion. But, well, I understand you're attached. Although, being realistic, when you're no longer here, the house is going to pass to Marcus anyway. Wouldn't it be better to take advantage of it now when the baby needs it? She talked about my death like someone talks about the weather, with that chilling naturalness. Marcus said nothing, just looked at his plate uncomfortably. Then came the real blow. 1 month before the fateful Christmas, Marcus arrived with papers. His face was serious, rehearsed. Mama, Ariana, and I consulted with a lawyer about asset protection. Asset protection? I repeated slowly. Yes, the lawyer says that at your age you should have everything in order just in case.
And the safest thing is for you to transfer the house to my name now to avoid legal problems later. There was the final objective. My house. And why would we need to do that, Marcus? To protect you, Mama. If the government, or if there are tax problems, or if someone tries to take advantage, they were excuses without substance, phrases Ariana had put in his head. And my bank documents also need protection? Marcus cleared his throat. Well, the lawyer suggested it would be prudent for you to give me power of attorney, just as a precaution so I can help you if something happens. Power of attorney. Total access to my accounts, my assets, my life. I looked at my son, really looked at him, and for the first time in 66 years, I didn't recognize the man in front of me. Marcus, I said softly, do you really think I can't handle my own affairs? It's not that, Mama. Then what is it? Silence. Long, uncomfortable. Finally, he sighed. Ariana says, I don't care what Ariana says. My voice cut through the air like a razor. I'm asking you what you think. I saw him hesitate. For a second, I saw my real son there, struggling to get out. But then he tightened his jaw and said, I think Ariana is right. You're stubborn, Mama, and that could get you into trouble. Every word was a stab, but I breathed and took the papers. I read them carefully. They were to transfer my house, the smallest one, valued at $340,000, to his name. Okay, I said, finally. Marcus seemed surprised. Really? Yes. If this gives you peace of mind, son, I'll do it. I signed right there with Mr. Whitaker as witness, whom I had called previously, of course. Marcus hugged me. Thank you, Mama. This is for the best. You'll see. What he didn't know was that house was my least valuable property, that I had 8 other properties generating millions, that he had just given him the crumbs, while the real feast remained hidden. But I needed them to believe they had won, that they had gotten everything I had. Because when they discovered the truth, the fall would be much more painful. And that Christmas came the moment of the toast, the moment when Ariana, drunk with power and champagne, announced that now she would control everything, that my card had been canceled, that I was officially under her administration. And everyone applauded. My family, my blood, celebrating my humiliation. But then I smiled and asked, Son, you really don't know, do you? And Ariana's world began to crumble. But before getting to that revelation at the Christmas dinner, I need you to understand the hell I lived through those last 3 months. Because Ariana didn't just want my money. She wanted my dignity, my spirit. She wanted to see me on my knees, and she almost succeeded.
After signing the house transfer, something changed. Ariana no longer pretended. She had gotten what she believed was my only asset. So the masks fell. The first humiliation came 2 weeks later. It was Sunday, the day of my monthly visit to Marcus's house. I rang the doorbell at 2 in the afternoon, as we had agreed. Ariana opened the door. She wore an ivory silk robe, her hair up in a messy bun, face without makeup. Her 4-month belly was already showing. Oh, mother-in-law, didn't Marcus tell you? Today we can't receive you. We have important visitors. Through the half-open door, I saw the empty living room. No visitors. Marcus confirmed yesterday that I should come today, I said, holding the container with sweet potato pie I had prepared since 5 in the morning. Ariana sighed as if I were a foolish child. Well, he told you wrong. Besides, mother-in-law, we need to talk about these surprise visits. Now that the baby is coming, we can't be receiving people without planning.
Marcus will call you to schedule when it's convenient. Schedule. I repeated the word as if it were poison in my mouth. I'm his mother, not a dentist appointment. I know, but things change. You understand. She began to close the door. Leave me the pie. I'll give it to Marcus. She extended her hand to take the container, as if I were a delivery person, as if I weren't the woman who had raised her husband alone for 30 years. No, I said, stepping back. This pie is for my son. I'll give it to him when I see him. Ariana narrowed her eyes. As you wish. Have a good day. The door closed in my face.